Hi, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to code a very basic chat box feature. And here you can sign in as a new user. And you can type in some basic messages. And it updates the chat box area. So it's a very basic PHP MySQL chat box using jQuery and Ajax. So let's begin the tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to new folder. I'm going to open my text editor. I'm using Sublime Text 3 right now, and I'm going to go to new folder and create a index page. So save this as index.php. And declare HTML5 doc type. I'm going to create a title, just a chat box, very simple. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the general layout of the chat box area for the HTML code. So I'm going to create a div called chat box. And then I'm going to create a couple sections in this area. First section I'm going to create is the sign-in box. And I'm going to give this section ID an idea of sign-in area. This next section ID of chat area. And this last section an ID of message typing area. Okay, I haven't purchased Sublime Text, but I'm going to go to the sign-in area and I'm going to create the sign-in form. And give this form a name of sign-in. Action of null. And on submit, return false. Then I'm going to create a span with text saying invalid user entry. And this is for when later on when we log in and there's an invalid username, this message will pop up. So we're just laying down the HTML for the groundwork for it. And give this an ID of invalid username. And then I'm going to create an input box to enter the username for the initial login. Size of 13 pixels. name, username, ID, username, and I'm going to create a placeholder text. Placeholder is an HTML5 attribute or HTML5 element. Enter username. And then create an input type submit, an ID of user sign in, value sign in. And for the chat area, we're going to leave it blank. We're going to leave it empty. We don't need anything there until we have something from the database to pull up. So we're going to move on to the section message typing area. And first thing we're going to do here is create a sign in. We're going to create a div called sign in to chat. And this div will contain a button to log in the user initially. So it's going to create a button here called user sign in. Give it an ID of sign in button. Type button, and button text will be sign in to enter chat. And then we're going to create a div containing the content that will allow users to type in chat once the user has logged in. So we're creating both HTML. This HTML will be hidden initially. So I'm going to create a div called ID chat enabled. Then here I'm going to create a form. With the name of new message. For this form, I'm going to create a class of new message as well. Action of null. And on submit, return false. And the reason why I'm creating return false for the on submit is because we are going to use jQuery to handle these forms using Ajax, using the Ajax function from jQuery. So inside this form, we're going to create two sections again, one called section left and one called section right. And one's going to create the chat box and one's going to create the button to send the message from the chat box. So I'm going to create a class called left. Section class called right. And in the left section, we're going to create a text area for the message to be typed in. And create a name of new message content, an ID of new message content, and placeholder text of enter or message here. And in this section right area, we're going to create a input button. And make it submit. Type submit an ID. New message send. And value of send. So if we go back and take a look at what we have, we have the invalid username text, which we will delete later. We have the enter username form box and the sign in button for that, and then we have sign in to enter chat, which will be this button right here. And then we have the message area and then the send button, which is the message area here and then the send button on the right here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use some CSS to format the HTML that we have here. So I'm going to create a new folder called CSS. And in case you don't understand the left box here, this is Sublime Text format of creating of managing files and folders. And if we go back to the folder here, I just created a new folder called CSS. And the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create a reset CSS so that the CSS appears uniform in all browsers. So I'm going to briefly copy a CSS file from reset CSS file that I already have. So this is what a reset CSS looks like, and it basically resets everything so that there's no formatting that's going on from the individual browsers, depending on whether you're using Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox. So we're going to copy and paste this into our new file and call it reset.css. And in our index folder, we're going to link it. So we're going to go to the header area and create a link tag, style sheet, type text CSS, href, CSS reset.css. And this should give very basic formatting to what we have already here. So that's all the formatting that's being removed. And now we're going to create another CSS file that's going to format it so that it gives the basic structure for the chat box. So I'm going to create another line, another link tag called global.css. global.css. And we're going to create a new file, name it global.css. So in this file, first thing we're going to do is give the section elements a border so that we can see where the line, where the different areas are. Display block, border 1 pixel, solid, black. Go back here, we have a 1 pixel border around everything. And now to format the chat box area. We're going to give the ID chat box a width of 550 pixels, background color of light blue, and a margin of 50 pixels. So that will look something like this. Then we're going to edit the sign-in area. And sign-in area is going to look like display block, width of 100%, text align of right. So that moves everything to the right. And this is a CSS code that we're going to use for later on, but later on you'll see, or actually I'll just add it later on when we actually need it. Or actually I'll just add it in right now. It's a sign-in area. This is CSS for HTML we haven't created yet, but later on we're going to create a HTML element using jQuery with the class of welcome. So we're going to create display inline block, line height of 30 pixels, and padding to the right of 10 pixels. So once the user has logged in, this area, this welcome area, is the CSS for the CSS code we just created. So once we've created that, we're going to create the chat message area, the message box area on CSS. And here we're going to create CSS for the ID of chat area, which, if you go back to the index page, is the section that we left completely blank. So inside here we're going to create a display of block, height of 300 pixels, background of white, and overflow of scroll. So the overflow of scroll is for when later we add chat messages that's longer than the chat box area. It creates a scroll bar, so that's what overflow Y scroll means. So if we go back to our style, this is what it looks like now, and it created this scroll bar on the right side, which is basically what the overflow Y scroll means. And now we're going to create CSS for the message typing area. And we're going to create CSS for the sign-in button. Make it big. Display block, height 50 pixels, width of 500 pixels, and margin of 50 pixels up and down, and auto left and right. So if we go back, this is what it's going to look like. So that creates a large sign-in button. Next, we're going to